All right, we are live. We are recording. We are live while we are recording. You are sick. It is Sunday. It is snowing. The world is wonderful.
It is quite the day, and I do apologize. I am feeling a little under the weather for your viewers, but
Scale of
we're
1 to 10,
gonna.
like where do you think you're at?
Right now, I would say like a 3, but it has the potential. Like you just started to go
Mm-hmm.
gradually downhill as the day is going.
It's got that
So
onset feeling where
I
it's
don't
just
even
like,
drink tea, but here we are.
I love tea. I have a whole cabinet full of tea, and I didn't even make tea. I was gonna make tea, but I'm like,
Hey, you said you were.
I thought about it, but I think I decided to take a really quick shower. And that
Yeah,
yeah, showers
nice.
really help when you're sick. For
Yeah,
some,
I've
I don't
taken
even know if
some,
it's psychological or what it is, but yeah.
just like the
Well,
hot steam maybe or
yeah, that's
something.
probably what it
You're
is. Yeah, it's
breathing
probably
in.
like some type of like massage therapy that's got to go to. It's like heat therapy or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, Tom, thanks for coming to the podcast. I appreciate you showing interest, and I looked through your IMDb and your website, and you've got a number of different um avenues and interests that you like to go down. My understanding is that you edit, shoot, direct, and produce the vast majority of your projects. You like to take a load when it comes to that regard.
Yeah, and honestly, I've been working to do the opposite, right? So my goal the last year is to build the team because I consistently want to be around the same people. I feel like the energy is so much better because you already know they know what they expect from me. I know what they expect from them, right? And the projects are just so much better because we go in there, we know exactly what we're going to do. We're going to have a great time,
Yeah.
and we're going to make a great product. So I I typically don't like to do all those things at the same time because I feel you're doing a disservice to one of the other, one
Mm-hmm.
or the other, right? Because I tried to explain this the other day, like shooting and directing at the same time, I think is terrible, right? Because one's so much left brain, one's so much right brain. Whatever's in the lens, if you're a
Yeah.
cinematographer, you're looking at how the gaffer placed that light, that hair light, right? Or you're looking at the composition of the frame, the continuity of the frame. The director is back there looking at everybody, and you don't really have time to do that when you're really looking in the frame.
You feel like
And
Bilbo in the Fellowship of the Ring. I feel stretched like
yeah,
butter scraped over too much bread.
yeah, one hundred
Well, go
percent.
ahead and
So
introduce yourself to the audience, and then tell first how you got started in filmmaking.
So I'm Thomas Angeletti, filmmaker. As you stated, I do a lot of things. I don't know what I do anymore. I just make movies. That's all. Like that's
And
what I
get
tell
sick.
people. Like we're making a movie. Like whatever
Yeah.
happens, whatever you got to do, just do it. Um, Funny enough, started getting into filmmaking or even holding a camera in general because of a cooking YouTube show I used to have a long time ago
Hmm.
called called Hill Grillies, and we used to just drink a lot of beer and cook barbecue. And we had like a cooking show and everything. And my friend, who's actually a guy I work with all the time, Justin Jean, he was the guy that had the camera and filmed these things, right? Because we started out on a cell phone. And he's like, dude, this looks like shit. You should probably like use a camera.
Yeah.
So he brings his over, and then we needed another one. I just went out and bought a Sony 6500, knowing nothing about cameras. I just bought it. And so we set it up, started doing some things. And probably, this is well before COVID, a couple years before COVID. So
Okay.
2015, 2016, 2017, something in there. And he's like, why don't you just like start helping me out with like photo shoots and video? And I'm like, dude, I don't know anything. Like, I don't know why you'd want to like just take my extra camera and set it up in the corner or do something like that. But anyway, we started doing some things, and one thing led to another, and here we are.
Oh, cool. And how long ago was that?
Like I said, probably 10 years, close to nine,
For
10 years
filmmaking
ago.
or the cooking show?
Oh, the cookie show only lasted a couple years. It was just, I thought you meant in entirety. My bad.
Okay.
The cookie show was only like a couple years. Well, actually, we are going to start a food truck, and that didn't work out. And that's when Justin's like, just grab the camera and go do stuff with me. And here we are.
Okay. And you're in the Columbus, Ohio area, correct?
Yep.
When you were first starting getting involved in filmmaking, how did you go about reaching other people in your local area in order to actually put a project together?
Mostly just use the groups, right? So Mid Ohio Filmmakers Association, MOFA, or Southern Ohio Filmmakers
On Facebook.
Association. Yep. And well, they have mixers, right? So the the funny enough, when I started building my team was during Winter Film. It's a annual thing that goes on in Cincinnati. It's a all Ohio competition, right? But based in
Mm-hmm.
Cincinnati. The OFCN, Ohio Filmmakers Community Network, has a mixer at Studio 35, which is a boutique little indie movie theater here in Columbus. And I went to it hoping, I was like, man, I just need to find like two guys because doing this all by myself is terrible. And, I just happened to run into a few people there. And then I'm like, well, they might know someone and they might know someone. I really just wrote down, like, what do I need? I need a sound guy,
Mm-hmm.
first off. I need that sound guy that's always going to be by my side 100% of the time, right? I need a camera guy. And then I need somebody to help me out production stuff, especially the logistics of things, right? So I just concentrated on all these mixers because they had one and Mofa had one and stuff. Like, I want to build that team around me, the people I trust and that trust me that's going to get this stuff done. So it was basically just Facebook groups and mixers and things of that nature.
Okay. All right. So, your first project, though, that first project is really when filmmakers like to decide that, oh, is this something I want to do, or is this something that like it's just going to be a hobby or it's a one-off thing? Because that it's depending on obviously your first serious project, it can either be a wake-up call or it can be a warning to not do it. And depending on how much you love making movies and how much you just love enjoying movies, you're either going to go one way or the other. So, what took you in the direction of filmmaking when it came to making your first project and realizing that, okay, this is something that I want to pursue a little more seriously?
Okay, so basically started out doing photography, right? And I'm like, this is fun. I'm having a good time, right? And then we started doing more film stuff. Actually, just more like videography stuff, events and stuff. I hated it. Talking
I've
head
always
stuff.
heard that people
Was,
hated that. A lot of people, a
was
lot of cinematographers, like I did weddings and then it was awful, and then
yeah.
I never did it again.
I like the interview piece just because I love storytelling, like love people like speaking their piece and such. But just the whole thing, just the monotonous nature of doing those things was terrible, right? So I'm like, well, let's try a narrative film. And first three were pretty awful. And then my first serious project was a my first feature called Perdition, and it was a short that then I mistakenly said, well, I really like the story. We kind of failed at the short, but let's make this shit a feature. It was an awful decision. But I learned, like you were saying, like stumbling and like learning, I learned everything that I know from failing drastically making that film.
Well,
So
I saw the Perdition. It's currently listed on Amazon, and I briefly looked at it on your IMDb. What made you decide to turn that short into a feature? What about it made you think that that would be worth your time and energy?
honestly, I just really loved the people that were involved, and we had a really good time making it. The
Mm.
short, I never released like the original short of that, right? And we just had a really close knit group of people, and we had a lot of good times. Just talking about the short pre-prod. That's before I even do like pre-pod at the level that I do now, right? But still,
Mm-hmm.
get together, having a couple beers. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. Hopefully, it doesn't rain. Hopefully, this doesn't happen. And then just really loved the people I was with, and I'm like, they bought in because I told them, I'm like, we can't show this. Like, the short's awful, and they all just encouraged me, like, well, let's just take it to the
Mm-hmm.
moon, let's go. And then I'm like, well, if you guys believe that stuff, I got to do this now. Like, you guys are believing in me, so it's like I can't let anybody down. So we just extended it, and it's like it's 50 minutes, but it's not really a feature, but you know what I mean. But
Mm-hmm.
and we just made a lot of mistakes, but we had a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah. Is that the film you'd say you're most proud of to date?
Not for any other reason as I wouldn't be who I am today without making it. So like in that regard, yes, but in any kind of technical aspect, no.
Which one would be?
Prob- Ooh, that'd be a tough one. Um,
I did watch After with Beth and Timothy starring in it, and Timothy wrote that, if I recall correctly. Correct.
yeah, that
So
was
did he reach out to you to direct it? Did he know you beforehand? How did that play out?
he knew me like through social media, right? But we've never met.
Okay.
He just took a blind leap. Timothy has this knack for just seeing stuff in people, right? Just like Sundays with Dad, like he knew George Hildebrand was going to play his his co-star. He knew Beth was going to play his co-star in After. He
Hmm.
has this knack, and I'm like, he's seen my films, the ones before,
Yeah.
right? Because I I would say the one before that actually was called Four Eyes On, and that was one of the projects I was most proud of. And we just kind of thrown that together, and it was just beautiful. And I was like, this is pretty damn good. We did a really good job for just throwing this together in a month. And he's just like, I'm looking for a director to help me make this film. It's called After, and this and this and this and this. And I'm like, I'm in. Like, let's just do this.
Hmm.
And we built the crew up, and we made it. And I'm really proud of that film as well. It's a very good piece, and it was something different than what I was doing at the time. And I like working with Timothy because he always pushes me in different areas of growth instead of just doing the same thing all the time. So he's a great writer. His
Hmm.
dialogue is bar none.
I saw the film After this weekend, and while although it basically just takes place in like 2 or 3 rooms, the performance itself was captivating. And like you said, he wrote pretty good dialogue, as far as I could tell, and both the chemistry between Beth and Timothy, between in their interaction with the scenario that they're having to play out, and consider whether or not is this something you should or shouldn't do. When when you're directing an emotional performance like that, what did you find that you had to approach differently when it came to interacting with the actors, not just to only make them feel, comfortable with each other? Because my understanding is that they actually didn't know each other beforehand.
No.
And so the fact that they were able to generate that chemistry was really impressive, actually, for the two performances that they gave. When you're directing an emotional scene like that, or just an emotional film overall, how do you go about approaching communicating with your actors in a way that can bring out the best performance and cultivate that?
So it really starts with table reads, right? It really starts with, let's pull this script out, get them together.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go line by line. Make sure this is even something they would say as embodying that character would say, right? Get all the little stuff out of the way, especially if it makes them more comfortable to say this sentence a different way, right? Get all that
Mm.
easy stuff out, right? So then it's all repetition. We did 7 table reads before that film. We actually filmed all that in 2 hours, 17 pages of dialogue.
You filmed the whole
All
thing in 2 hours, that 17-minute film.
all the coverage. We did extra angles and such. We probably spent 4.5 hours filming,
Oh, okay.
and I do all long takes. Actor's gonna act. That's how I rule,
Yeah.
right? So we and plus Beth and Tim are two of the best actors around. So it was that part made it easy because once they have the vision, they buy in, and once they buy in, the team buys in, right? So really just nailing those table reads, making sure they're comfortable with the dialogue, making sure all the sensitive subjects about the gun being in there, right? It wasn't a real gun, but having that
Mm-hmm.
conversation. The only really organic thing that took away from that is when Beth had to cry when seeing Timothy fall asleep, pass out, on the couch. I had to take her off to the side, and I'm like, I want you to go in that bathroom for 5 minutes, and I want you to think about one of your family members that you didn't get to say what you wanted to say, and I really just want you to think about that, and then come
Interesting.
out. And as soon as you come out, we roll. Like, you just give me the thumbs up, and we go.
How many takes did
And
that
that
take to get that performance out of her after you did that?
too.
Two?
Yep.
She nailed it on the
And
head
just
then.
Beth is amazing. Like, she's it was captivating just seeing it, and just I really went for that kind of immersive because, like you were saying, it's only filmed in 3 rooms, right? So we don't have this beautiful
Right.
set deck going on, right? Or this immaculate pieces going all over. The wardrobe is very boring, right? And miscolor because it's a funeral, right? So we Jake and I talked a lot about like making the camera angles immersive, drawing into their eyes. I didn't want to shoot anything not on sticks. I didn't want to take your eyes off of their eyes for 1 second,
Hmm.
right? Because that was how I feel like we got those performances. We did all the table reads. We had 2 amazing actors, right? There was nobody else there. We had a super small crew. When I'm doing pieces like that, I don't want a lot of people, I need
Yeah.
my sound guy, I need my grip, I need my gaff, I need my cinematographer, actors, and everyone else leave. Go out the room, we'll put a
Do you
monitor
think
out
having
there,
a smaller crew assisted the performance in an indirect way?
100%, make them more intimate, right? So like when
Mm.
they're in the zone, right, they're not looking around. They don't see 17 people watching them. They see only the necessary people. And I made sure that they were comfortable with the people they were in there with,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because I don't want anything being toxic or being a cancer on our set. I hate that stuff, right? So they were at the table reads too, right? All the crew that I wanted in that room was there, right? So if there was any energy, if there was anything that was kind of off, I knew that right then.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, Beth already knew most of the crew that I work with. Tim knew them from social media, seeing them on other projects and stuff like that. So it came together pretty simple. But I think if that wasn't the case, we still would have had to have done that, right, to get that comfortability to allow these actors to go into these dark places.
Mm. Talking about the being toxic, I've in the last few episodes that I've done, I've gotten a number of stories out of the actors specifically, about sets that were weird, or is kind of a scam or a production or something like that, or
Yeah.
I don't know if do you know Theo White?
Yeah.
Yeah, he
Love
talked
Theo.
about a in the podcast that's going to come out next week. Actually, he was referring to a set that I think like also Beth was on, where the director like randomly just took a break and went and grabbed some breakfast in the middle of everything.
That's crazy.
I,
That never
I,
happened to
I
me.
couldn't imagine that. Was there a specific toxic experience that you've experienced on someone else's set or on one of your own sets that make you more acutely aware of how important good chemistry between the crew and the cast is?
Actually, I honestly could say never on my set because I've kicked them out before we filmed.
Mm. How do
I've
you
had to
vet that?
fight, huh?
How do you vet those people?
Just being around the group. That's why it's so important to always be around the same people, right?
Mm.
That you trust, that we know their energy. And if somebody comes up to me and say so and so kind of acting strange or shifty or they got kind of a weird vibe, kind of feel it out. I've had
Mm-hmm.
to I've had to fire a writer. I've had to fire a special effects person just because they made people feel uncomfortable. They were saying things they shouldn't be saying or doing things they shouldn't be doing. Um,
Interesting for a writer to have that temperament. Generally, writers are kind of like the quiet, reclusive people who don't normally speak up at all.
this one wanted a lot of hands on the
I see.
project post
Yeah.
writing, and that's a whole nother conversation. But and that wasn't the reason, right? But they
Mm.
just made like what once you make somebody on my set uncomfortable, you're gone. It. We never get to that point.
Mm.
I have no problem having hard conversations. I actually love them. I don't know why. I'm just
I'm
driving.
getting the gist of that. You're like, all right, who do I get to
Well,
who do I get to vet today?
it's just like that's my role, right? My role is to keep everyone safe and comfortable
Hmm.
as a director and give every cultivate this environment that allows them to be the best they can be. And if I'm not doing that, I'm not doing my job.
Hmm.
And anytime we shift the pendulum to the point where somebody's not feeling okay or I know I'm not going to get the best product, we got to make changes. It's got to be quick.
What do those conversations look like? Because the indie world really kind of temperamentally only has like two different types of people: the really passionate and caring sort of person, and then the ones who are there uh, for their work, not because they love their work, but because of their work being an extension of their own ego, and then they go above and beyond to try to basically micromanage that, and whoever gets in their way ends up having they end up just becoming an object in the way, and you got to remove them or
Yeah.
you have to mess with them. When it comes to having those sorts of conversations, do you like give them a warning, or do you just ask them what's up, or do you how hard on the nail do you hit it with them when it comes to being confrontational?
Mainly, I just asked the question, "What are you here for?" Just because you said, like you were just saying, the ego part, right? I don't care if you have an ego, but we're here to make a movie.
Mm.
If you can check that ego back there and put that ego into your part of the job, whether it's gaffing, gripping, cinematography, you can be egotistical if you're really good. Just don't mess with the rest of the people, right? Get the job done. and then go brag about it some other time. Like if they can't check it at the door, then I don't want them there,
Mm.
because I don't want anyone else feeling inadequate, or any kind of way that this one person's trying to take up so much space in this room that it kind of suffocates everyone else, and they don't feel like they're heard or seen, or their work's valuable, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Um, it's a very simple conversation, basically. Like I was just saying, like, what are we here for? Are you here to make a movie?
Mm-hmm.
You know, whether it be because you're passionate or you're egotistical, what are your goals? And we have that conversation way ahead of time. New people all the time. I
Mm-hmm.
just want to know where their head's at. It's not a hard conversation, but I can probably siphon out what I need to very quickly, just from their body language, their facial expressions, and all of that. But it's all about the buy-in, right? And that's what I tell them. Like, I don't care if we're here for 16 hours or 2 hours. You're coming in here to make a film,
Right.
and we're going to make a film. And if we can't make a film today, we're going to make it tomorrow. Like, that's just, and if they can't agree with that, their actions will always outshine their words, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
anybody can say something, but as soon as we get them on a set, we'll know very quickly. And we do a lot of test shoots. Like, so basically, we do this thing where we'll just take some new actors
Mm-hmm.
and some new people that we never work with, and we'll make like a 2 or 3 minute film. We do that
You do like a test short film just to run the gauntlet with the crew that you're scouting, essentially?
sometimes, yeah.
How often do you do
I
that?
mean, 3 to 5 times a year.
Oh, okay. So it's also an auditioning process, essentially, for
Well, that
potential
they
new
get
crew.
something for the reel, right? They get something for them. I get something for
That's
me,
true.
because it's always quality stuff. It never looks terrible, right? And I could send you some examples, but
Mm-hmm.
and I got some on like Instagram and stuff. Just like real quick, 2 or 3 minutes, just to work together. Let's get a vibe before I'm on set with you for 18 days, 8 days, 8 hours.
How going back to the your desire to further delegate some of the tasks that you've had to take on, in the past, for like shooting, editing. What are the positions that you think that you don't want to give up on? Like, where are your core desires in terms of creating films at?
It depends on the project, right?
Really?
So yeah, there's some projects like we're actually in production for a film called Cowboy Christmas right now,
Okay.
and I'm just DP. I mean, obviously I'm there for moral support, or advice if somebody wants to ask me, but my job, those shots are going to look amazing, right? And that's what I need to care about. Or if it's another project that I'm taking the directorial rule on, I'm going to give all those other rules out to other people, because I don't want to be a disservice to the project by trying to take on too much. The only reason I had to do that in the beginning is because it was just me and a couple people, right? So the
Right.
lesser amount of people, the more hats you have to wear.
Mm-hmm.
So it really depends on the project. So I think Timothy brought it up on his project, or podcast, not project, but we have another film coming out on the, or starting production in February. I'm just DPing that as well,
Okay.
but I'm bringing most of my people with me that want to come. Right, my wardrobe guy James is always with me. Justin's always with me. Williams, my sound guy. James is like, he runs camera. He does.
Are you producing
Uh,
it?
huh?
Are you
Yeah,
help producing it?
yeah. In a sense, I
So
just
did
do
you
whatever.
hire the director? Did you find someone, or did the director approach you with a project in mind?
Timothy and I just had a conversation, and he picked Maya, and Maya's amazing.
Okay.
Maya Ahmed. We actually did a film together. Maya's been working with me for, well, she had to move to Indianapolis, but for a long time, like doing AD roles and producing roles, directing roles. I'm a big believer is if you join the crew with us, I don't want anybody to be stagnant, right? So that's why I like to move around as well too, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if I want to do camera work, which one of you guys want to direct this? Which one of you guys want to AD this? I just want to direct this. Which one of you guys want to run camera? Who do you want to bring in that has the eye that you guys like, that can run the camera the way that we need to produce this visual image, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a lot of conversations, because I want them to have input, everybody to have, a democratic approach to making a film.
When is the worst time to give input?
Never.
Never.
Nope.
Interesting. Because I was thinking specifically, like I've seen some instances on sets where there's a production assistant, essentially a gopher who kind of wants to step in and make their, or like they're brand new to the whole scenario, and then they were there to just kind of see what filmmaking is all about, and then they start trying to give the director advice.
Okay,
So,
so in that instance, we've already had that production meeting, and they know what they're trying to do and what their job is.
okay.
And
So you've been clear. You're clear
yeah,
absolutely on every single detail up front before anything even happens.
yeah. So I guess I should have thought about the way that you phrased that. So I apologize. Yeah. So
I will
basically,
never
product.
forgive you.
I deserved it. Admonish me. But
I'm I'm here to grill a sick man.
oh shoot. But we always have. I don't bring anyone new on set that was never in a production meeting. So that's first off.
Okay.
So if you haven't been a part of at least a couple production meetings, you are not coming on set because of that reason, right? Because you don't know our unified goal, and therefore you'll give your input, and be that as may, it may have good intentions behind it, right? But
Yeah.
you're slowing everyone else down. Now there's always those organic moments, right, where we'll be in a scene and somebody might tap me on the shoulder. I never let them say it out loud. They either talk to me only or they use the walkie. I don't want to hear the actors. I don't want the actors hearing what they're saying. I don't want anybody else hearing what they're saying,
Mm-hmm.
because that I'm taking them out of that mindset. Even if it's a good idea, then we slow down and we say, "Hey, Jake over here has a really good idea. Let's approach it like this." But if I feel like if somebody just starts talking loud over everybody and kind of just making everybody think about what he's saying, it's shifting away from our goal, right?
Right.
Or that emotion. And it could be something as simple as like, man, if he just changed his face for that one look, or if he just maybe instead of saying the dialogue, he thinks the dialogue and makes his face say it. There's all kinds of like little instances, right? But I don't want them getting in the actor's head. So we have production meetings a lot. I know Timothy touched on it a lot. I make these guys meet probably more than they want to, but I want everything to be perfect. So that way we have room for those organic moments, right? If we're on schedule and we nail coverage in
Mm-hmm.
2 to 4 hours, and I always like to tack on 2 to 4 hours more than I plan on being there, right? So if I think I'm going to be there for 4 hours, I say 8. If I'm going to be there for 8, I'm going to say 12, because then it's a surprise that we wrapped early, right?
Right.
So my goal, I've already lined the script. I know how many minutes each scene's going to take. I know how many shots are in each scene, right? So, and I've already talked to the cinematographer. We shoot for coverage, and then we get our angles, right? And like I
Right.
said, I do long takes. Some actors love that. Some actors hate it. I don't care. You're here to act. Let's get this done.
Very.
Um,
You're very business. You're very. Meet the goal, accomplish it. Let's get in. Let's get out. Let's bust it out, and
yeah,
have fun while we're doing it.
yeah. And then let's like once all that's done, we get coverage. We know we have what we need. If somebody has an idea, let's try it. Or if something looks better in a different lens or a different composition, let's try it. We've already got the film done. Like everything's been shot. Like I said, we shot Sundays with Dad, 17 pages, almost all dialogue. We shot that in 3 hours
Wow.
and just about 8
Did
long
you
takes.
rehearse before that with a lot of table
Yeah,
reads?
a lot of table reads. They were meeting almost weekly.
Mm. Do you think you spend less time on set than
Yep.
other filmmakers because you have such an emphasis on pre-production?
100%. It's just like a concert, right? Concert only lasts 2 hours, but they spent 12 months making it.
Yeah.
I feel
Yeah.
like if you do everything in the beginning, you don't have to worry about obviously, there's always going to be things that go wrong, but I've
Mm-hmm.
already thought about 5 different ways to approach that before that happens,
How
right?
do you
But
filter out possibilities from um, hindering your goal of getting keeping the production on time, keeping the integrity of the story in line? Um, when, how do you know what is a good on the spot idea to add to the schedule?
how long is it going to take?
Mm,
First off, if we got to do an entire company move, right? We
right.
have to move a bunch of lights. Are we talking 2 hours, or are we just shifting the camera, one like over to the left or up high or up low, right? So that's the first thing to take in consideration. Um, That's kind of what I base it upon. And if I'm really emotionally beating this actor, like, what more do you want out of them that we don't already have? Because I know a
Yeah.
lot of people, especially like you're saying, new to the scene. Oh, what if they just cried a little bit longer? What if they just really did this? I'm like, do you know what I'm doing to this person? I'm taking this person to a really
Yeah.
dark place right now, and we got what we need. So if it's more of the same, no, right? But
Right.
if you can give me a scenario where it changes the game and it's just a little, because even the small things, the details is what matters. But I take all that into consideration. Also, time, weather. Are we outside? Are we inside? What's the time of day we're trying to achieve? Do I got to bring more lights in to make us, we're shooting at night, but we got sun coming in the window?
Tell me the last time that that someone's suggestion added value to the film.
Shoot, almost every damn time, I feel like. Um, Let me think about that. I think Cowboy Christmas, the one we're shooting right now, it was a suggestion of how we were going to shoot the bar.
Hmm.
And I can't really talk about it because it's not released yet, but I had in my mind exactly how I wanted this to go. And Justin, who does cinematography, he gasps for me all the time. He's like, he just comes in and like hits me upside the face with this whole other plan because he saw the windows, he saw, where we were shooting,
The
and
cinematographer.
yeah, the frame. And I was even DPing this. He was my gaffer.
Oh, okay. All right, gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he still come up and he was like, why don't we do it like this? And I'm like, well, shit, man, that actually might be a good idea. So we took his shots and we did our shots, and then we're still editing it. But his shots were way better than mine.
Okay.
Understand, 100%.
Is Cowboy Christmas, is that a feature or a short?
It's a short. It's a short. It's a suspense drama.
Okay. How long do you think that's going to end up being the runtime?
Right around 10 minutes.
10 minutes. Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of what I shoot for a short.
For for shorts, do you think that normally how long are your, because you're very concise with how you approach production and scheduling and being organized and have everything laid out from the very very beginning? How long do your shoots typically take, and how often do you run over?
Rarely run over. Um, for instance, I'm gonna say Friends Forever was the longest day. It was 16 hours, but they also got a 3-hour break.
Mm. Oh, a
Um,
3 hour break.
yeah,
Was there like
because
some weather instances or something like
well,
that?
we had to wait till night comes, like the nightfall, and then we had all these classic cars. We had to get them all lined up
I
and get
see.
them all
Yeah.
parked. Hell, half the crew were fishing
Are there
during
any
that.
fear? That's funny. It's like, hey, we're bring your fishing rods, and we might have some downtime. It's like, what? Whose set are we on?
Well, we was on this old farm, and that our green room was a whole cabin, and they just had fishing pools, so they just took it.
That's a vacation, man. I don't know what
It
you're
was
around
it was probably
making.
the coolest set I've ever had, but we had a lot of people to kill, and we didn't have a lot of time to do it.
Have
So
you made? I know you mentioned like Perdition runs around 50 minutes. Are you in working on any ideas or scripts that you think you might turn into a longer, like hour and a half, 2 hour feature?
yeah, for sure. So basically, right now we're running writing meetings between me and Justin and William and a couple other people are joining. Basically, we just throw our scripts on a table. Who's got the best one?
Hmm.
Who's got the better idea? But then we spend other time kind of like, I'm stuck on this part. I'm writing this script. I'm stuck here, and just see if somebody else has like, well, why don't you do it like this? Why don't you do it like that? Why don't you change this entirely? It sucks. That way we're constantly, all of us are constantly writing all the time.
What
But
makes a
my
script
goal,
worth doing?
I think, what it does to your soul, man. Like, if you think about the
How much
characters
does
and
it
you
fuck you up?
yeah, you think about the story, and you're just like, fuck, man, this needs to be something. And you just think about it every day and every night. I have like 3 scripts
I
that I've
love
been
those
working
movies,
on. Well, yeah,
especially yeah.
it doesn't even matter that other people think that way. You have to think that way, because I think a lot of people make films for other people, and you need to make films for yourself. You need to make music for yourself. You need to paint for
Yeah,
yourself.
yeah.
Because if you ain't doing it for yourself, you're not doing shit. You're just wasting time. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and I think a lot of people try to go out of their way to appease a lot of others in that regard.
What
Because you
makes
could
you
tell.
gravitate toward a script personally?
I think how I connect with it, like the actors, the story, and it also depends. Am I shooting it right, or am I directing it? If I'm shooting it, I'm like, where's the scenery? How's the light looking? Right? Is
I
this
see.
night? Is this
Yeah.
day? And if it's directing, what's the story? Where can I take these people to give the viewer the best quality experience we can on these pages? Right? What's the dialogue like? What are they dressed like?
Mm-hmm.
Are they an asshole? Do I get to make them an asshole? Do I get to make them a really sad? You know what I mean? But it's just like
Right.
you
Yeah.
kind of, and then just taking that experience and using it with your life experiences, right? Because I'm a huge fan of like Scorsese because that's what he does, right? All of his films are super raw, but
Mm-hmm.
like I think Goodfellas is the most perfect film that ever been made, 100%.
Really.
And it's not even because I'm Italian. I mean, probably kind of, but it just is because it's just raw, and they use almost every damn camera technique in that film
Mm-hmm.
in one
Oh,
film.
another one by Scorsese. It's been a while since I've seen Goodfellas, but the one in the most recent times that has stuck out in my mind was Silence.
Yes,
Yeah,
great film
that.
as well.
Well, what makes it's so interesting because like the last film that he made before that, and Silence was a film about these Catholic missionaries and persecution in Asia, and the film before that he made was Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah,
it's it's I don't know what kind of headspace you have to be in to like, oh, we're gonna go do this one, which is completely about like greed and hedonism, and then we're gonna go swing the opposite direction entirely.
and I think that's what makes a director. I don't even know the term. Good is just not even a good enough word. Great when you could take a,
Exceptional.
yeah, that's a better term. Sick me's not thinking straight, but when you're able to go from deep dive into this script, like you said, it's completely different. Then you jump over here and do this, and
Yeah.
it's just a whole different journey. You're taking brand new people down a completely different journey, and you still. I always try to take what I make in other films and add them to this film, like just the experiences of it. You know what I mean? And it's just like that blows my mind when a director can do it well. That's a natural storyteller,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
they're not writing the words, right? They're somebody else wrote it and they're putting it on a screen. So
Scorsese, that particular thing, is what impresses me the most about him, because of the level of detail and resolution you have to see things in order to do a switch like that in terms of the projects that you tell. You just have to see things at a level of depth that most people just don't even, the data doesn't even get inputted. There's no way. You either have it or you don't,
yeah,
really. Um, oh gosh, yeah. I've got so many good questions. I want to talk about like more
go ahead.
your producing. Because you're in the Columbus area, which I'm not
Yep.
terribly familiar with. I've extended myself through like the Cincinnati, Dayton area, and then running along that 275 route.
Yep.
And I've talked to some other people here locally about what they think their local scene needs to do in order to improve. I'm curious to get your input on the Columbus area because I'm not so familiar with it.
Improve. Can you elaborate? Just like
Improve.
the
Well, I'll back up a little bit. I have this observation about all of this all the film business essentially coming to the Midwest. All
Yep.
of the because now Atlanta was the first one, and now we got Nashville, and
Yep.
then especially in recent years the addition of the Ohio tax credits, we've seen some business noticeably start to increase year after year in the industry here locally. Now Cincinnati has had films, and the recent Superman was also filmed partly in Cleveland and in Columbus, and so we got this north-south Midwest chain of big cities, and Sundance is potentially going to come
Yeah.
to Cincinnati, which would be a really big freaking deal. And so the purpose behind asking that question is like, well, how can filmmakers best set themselves up or improve the area around them to prepare for this very, I wouldn't say more than likely, this likely, I'm a writer and this is not good.
I get what you like.
Yeah.
So basically, I think it's just doing more networking, figuring out how the city's going to help us get permits, help us get grants, help us, because that's always the hard part, right? You could get a group of people
Interacting with the local
together.
government.
Yep. And like Daniel Geisheimer down in Chillicothe, like he's doing a great job. He's on the film commission that he helped create there. He's helping with like the actual county, or not county, but the city, doing all kinds of things, projects and stuff. And I want the door to be open for us here and in Cincinnati and in Cleveland, right? So that way
Mm-hmm.
there's not just like super big films and then us somewhere like down here, right?
Yeah.
Where all those grants, all that money, all those tax dollars only go to movies that are like $500,000 plus budget,
Right.
right? Because that's always where them tax credits go for. They go for films that
Which is
potentially
still
gonna
low
burn.
budget.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
But a lot of us aren't still making films of that budget. You
No.
know what I mean? So it's just getting into like, we have the GCAC here who gives out grants, Greater Columbus Arts Commission. They give out a lot of grants. I know Gateway does a lot of things, but just networking, building the crews, getting to a point where we are opening those doors to be able to get permits, to get into places that we weren't able to, 2 years ago, 5 years ago. Because now that you're saying all this stuff is coming in, the city's probably starting to see some worth in investing in some of that infrastructure,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because if Superman could come here, or Fallback Studios is coming to Dublin, like right up the road from you, right? And that's going to be
Nice.
huge. But just seeing that opportunity, that the more we create, the more opportunity we can bring business in here, and we're
Mm-hmm.
spending money while we're here anyway, right? We got to eat somewhere, we got to drink coffee somewhere, we got to bring people in to do stuff. They got to have somewhere to stay,
Right. Yeah.
and just seeing that opportunity and seizing it,
Mm.
getting our foot in the door.
Well, tell me a little bit more about obviously you can't talk too much creatively about your feature that you're currently working on. How, because you've done mostly shorts, and but then you did a longer project with Perdition, and that's definitely not nothing. 50 minutes is not nothing, especially for a project that started off as a short. How are you thinking about in terms of getting investing for that project?
So
What are the discussions like surrounding money in terms of getting an influx have been?
it's basically, I talk to Tim about it all the time, right? And other members of the crew. It's creating this kind of, let me think of the word. Now I'm drawing a blank. Basically creating this project, a product, not even a project, that gets people invested. Like, what are the ways we can make people feel like they're part of something? Not just like throw your money at this project because it's a project. We do heavy amounts of BTS, right? Video. I film crew meetings. We film all of that. Everything that we do, we film it. It's not like best quality or stuff, but I want to be able to bring this experience to people that would potentially invest into us, and after they do invest into it. Because if you invest in this one film and you feel like you're a part of something, you're not just getting a t-shirt or a poster or whatever. Like, it almost feels like you're a part of the team. And I feel like projects kind of fall short. We look at an Indiegogo and like there's some really cool pictures.
Right.
There's a poster, and that's really cool. I'm not downplaying that or saying that took no effort, right? Because I've done it. It takes effort. I'm sure you've done a ton of that stuff too, but you just got to create something that they're worth investing in, because at the end of the day, they're not investing in the film. They're investing in us, right? They're
Right.
investing in our vision and how we're going to bring it to life. And I feel like the big goal for me in 2025 is to make those projects and make it attractive to first just throw your money in, but then know why you're throwing your money in,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then being able to take a sizable campaign to go get bigger producers saying, "Hey, we rose this, we made this money on our own,
Yeah.
right? And we did this grassroots. If we had this, we could do this. Here's everything we've already done. Here's the talks that we've already done. We've already tested this stuff out. We already know what we want to do. We just need money." Right? I think
Yeah.
Terrifier, like that whole series, Damien Leone was like a huge component of like my kind of dreams for something like that. Because if you take Terrifier, like the YouTube series, and then you go to like All Hallows Eve, and then the first Terrifier, and now Terrifier 3, $2 million um, budget, and
Yeah.
still mostly funded by local people. And then of course now he's got studios, so he's got a shit ton more money. But like it didn't start out that way. But if you can prove you can make a viable product with the right people, I think that looks attractive to investors that actually want to help pad that budget.
Okay. The oh god, it just slipped me. Which
All
is
good.
very, very fun. I think I'm catching whatever you got through the screen. I don't know. It might be
I'm
it.
so sorry, man. I'm so sorry.
Oh, right. Business. Because, as a writer, like I and okay, I'll give you a little bit of context about myself, and then you can see where I'm coming out with these questions. I've got a film with a bunch of CGI that I'm working on for a number of years, but it was one of those projects that was way too ambitious for the time for what it was, and so that's been a shtick in this issue, and but so lately in the past several years, I've basically just been focusing on writing and then getting plugged into the local networks, and it's just been doing good for me. I supervised some visual effects for a guy here locally named Brian Jones for a proof of concept. But there's as indie filmmakers, there's this mysterious middle ground where it's difficult to explain like how you get through that to the next level of filmmaking. There's this void, this giant gap that goes from like, okay, everyone needs to either volunteer their time or raise a Kickstarter in order to fund their campaign, and then cross that void into the actual industry, and then try to get a little bit more consistency with generating income from your works and your projects, which is very difficult for just art in general at all. But the industry is also going through a transition period right now with the birth of AI, trying to figure out how do we get more people back into theaters because there's so much on streaming and all those things. And so one of the common things I think about also, I've talked to some people that I know also, is how can the local scene cross that void? Like what are we missing? Because all the business is starting to come to the Midwest anyway. Whatever we have, people are coming here for it. Probably the tax credits.
I was going to say the tax credits, the
Yeah.
cheaper cost of living,
Cheaper
the,
cost of
the
living.
the decent infrastructure that we have here.
Yeah.
Well, even in all three cities. I know you're in
Mm-hmm.
Dayton, but I'm talking like Columbus, Cincinnati,
It's
Cleveland.
Ohio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're super close. Like it's 2 hours away from almost anything,
Mm-hmm.
other than like being in Texas or Atlanta, where if you went down to Florida for a film, you're flying.
Mm-hmm.
So
What thoughts have you had though about how you think the indie world can become more integrated into the mainstream industry? Because obviously indie gets just as there's just as many good filmmakers in the indie world as there are bad filmmakers. This is sort of where the wheat separates itself from the chaff, before it crosses the void into the more consistent income stream of the main industry. So how do you think indie filmmakers can best not waste the potential opportunities that are coming down the pipeline for our local area, particularly in Ohio and the Midwest at large? Or what would you like to see?
Well, that comes in twofold, right? So a big thing that we're trying to do in Columbus here, just to kind of grow, like you said, past that point, the the best way to grow past that point is to get your project out to more people, right? The more people that see your work, the
Mm-hmm.
more people think that, the more buzz you can generate. I think that's the hardest part with indie filmmaking, because big ass studios already do that for big filmmakers, right? They don't have
Mm-hmm.
to do all the groundwork anymore.
Right.
And like your podcast is a great example of helping that, right? But trying to do things with theaters, because like last January, well, almost damn near a year ago right now, we had a double feature and it did really well. We almost sold 300 seats.
Wow.
And I think it's just getting people out there to see more things, to take you more seriously. It's just like a local band, right? There's a difference between you and a famous band. They're just famous and you're not. And I think it's a
Right.
mindset shift. It's almost like what you were talking about at the beginning of this podcast. Like when you make that project, you decide, right? Am I going to put my heart and soul into this and get shit done, or is this not for me? And
Mm-hmm.
I think it's that same plateau when you make a couple of good films, you make a little bit of money from them. It's just that next step. And that next step, unfortunately, most of the time is money. And it's finding people that will invest in that. And but I think just believing in yourself and the material that you're making, the team that you're with, and just get that buy-in that we're going to break through that. Get more people to see your film. Streaming obviously helps, but the problem with streaming is you don't make any money. Like you
Yeah.
go through an aggregator most of the time, like a Film Hub or something like that. You make
Mm-hmm.
pennies on the dollar, right? But you also saw my film on Amazon because of it. But it's just like I think too many people put their eggs in a basket, thinking like, oh, we get one streaming, we're gonna make it. Or we
Right.
get two films on streaming, and it's just it's a grind, it's a process, and you have to trust it.
Because the
But
aggregator is not the one that's marketing your film.
no,
They're just the middleman
they're just
between getting it and not getting it. They're putting it
yeah,
on the platform.
and they're taking the money for doing all of it
I
too.
know, right?
Because once everybody else takes their money, you got nothing.
Hmm. I read
But
a business book about filmmaking, and it surprised me. Which
yeah,
I mean, it made
what
sense.
book was it?
Kind of. There's so many hands in the pot. There's so
Yeah,
many hands in trying to all keep as much gold as possible, which is understandable. But there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen when it comes to people on the back end of
yep,
marketing, distribution, sales agents, and then whatever royalties if you're on a larger production, the actors and the key crew is getting, and then there's just so many factors and variables, it's which makes it daunting, and adds a bit more darkness to that void in order to cross it.
yeah, because whatever your goal was, you got to make 5 times that to pay all those people,
Hmm. And
and
not
you
even
don't have
just
a
make money on it.
yeah, you're
Yeah.
you're breaking even, but they're all getting paid.
Hmm.
But that's part of the sacrifice. That's part of the. This is why I'm doing this. I'm not doing this for money. Obviously, we all would like to get paid a lot of money, but
Yeah.
I think if that's all you concentrate on, you're never going to make any
Right.
because or you just get lucky, right? And then you get on a project where they're either remaking the same film for the 15th time
Mm.
or just some bullshit they threw on a screen just because they knew it was going to get eyes on it. And if that's your game, I would do nothing for my soul. Like if I were involved in something like that, I wouldn't.
Hmm.
I'd be fun to be able to say I was a part of it, right? Everybody would do that, but it's not going to keep me up at night. You know what I mean? Because I didn't do it myself. I didn't do it my way. I didn't do it with the way I wanted to do it.
What do you think for you personally makes all of this worth its headaches and heartbreaks?
Mostly just the people I get to make movies with, right? Growing with them, seeing them grow as people. The thing I love about most is just seeing people fucking when their eyes light up when it's like, dude, I shot that shit, or dude, that film
Mm.
sounds
Yeah.
so damn good because I did that, or like James, my costume guy, he's actually the guy that directed and wrote Cowboy Christmas. Dude never smiles. He just does not smile. He smiled like 3 times during his set, and he was like lit up like a Christmas tree. And it's just
Yeah.
like that. That shit makes me go on. And then plus, like, people see your film and are like, dude, I watched such and such. That was so much fun. Like, or like after, for instance, right? People
Hmm.
like that film made me think about this, or this film reminded me of like this happened in my life, or just like hearing people like your art being involved in their lives, or like them embracing it
The
in some
connection.
sort of way. Yeah.
Yeah.
And plus, I just love doing it. I wouldn't do it if I didn't love it.
Mm. Do you love the create? Well, because you talked a lot about the organizational process and dealing with production, dealing with people. Um, what creatively do you most enjoy about it?
The pre-production,
The
is that what you
pre-production?
mean?
Oh no,
Is that
just
what you're asking?
create. It's an abstract question, not necessarily specific to production, but like
Okay.
creatively, what tickles your fancy or squeeze your juices?
Just taking them long takes where that actor's just in the zone and everybody's just watching and nobody's saying anything. It's almost like when my grandmother, right, when she would cook, she knew she
Hmm.
cooked a good meal because nobody said shit. They were just eating, right? But you're just watching these people and their eyes
Right.
are just locked on that actor, and that actor, you could just tell they're flying to the moon right now.
Mm.
And just when that take when I yell cut and nobody says shit because they know they just saw magic, that is by far the greatest feeling in the world
I've
because
had a few experiences on a set where I was directing where that thing happened, and there's it's similar to when an audience witnesses those moments in theater, and then there's this your thought, you can tell that your thoughts are collectively synchronized with everyone else's around them.
yeah,
And that's a whole meta, that's also a metaphysical type of connection in that way.
yeah.
But I can definitely relate to you on that one. That when, because the times when I was able to witness something like that, it was you when, and this kind of goes to more emotional connections at large, is that when you can, emotion is essentially, it's when your existence is suspended above itself, and you have
Yeah.
this out of body experience where it's like, oh my gosh, I'm experiencing this sort of thing, and I'm seeing that I'm experiencing this sort of thing, and you just feel the gravity of the weight of, what life can be and what it feels like. And I think filmmakers, not a lot of filmmakers might necessarily be able to pontificate that or articulate that, but I can, from what I've talked to a lot of filmmakers, they feel that way.
And I think it all depends on the way that the filmmaker approaches it too, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
if you approach a script with the connection already in place, when the actor comes through and just completes that, it's almost like completing an electrical circuit, right?
Right. Yeah.
Because you already knew it was there and you've already talked about it through various production meetings or table reads, and then they just go and nail it. Or even better, when they're just in the moment and they take it to left field, but it's still in that sandbox where you wanted it to
Mm-hmm.
be anyway, and you knew kind of where it was
And they
going to
just
go.
completely elevate the thing that was
Yeah,
already great.
yeah, and that just there's no feeling like that I've ever experienced.
Mm. Well, it certainly makes you keep coming back. This evening, I'm hoping I get this similar experience because I'm going to go see Nosferatu.
Dude, it's
Um,
such a great film.
is it
It's
is
a
it worth
great
the
film.
hype?
Yeah. Well, it
Okay, good,
depends.
good.
It depends on which way you want to look at it, right?
Yeah.
So I don't want to do any spoilers, but
Mm.
it depends on what you're trying to take from it.
Mm-hmm.
What I took from it, I wasn't trying to compare it to the old films or wasn't trying
Yeah.
to see what they got right or didn't get right. If you come in with a fresh perspective, you know, I
I
think you'll
love when films and writing get very philosophical and that
yeah,
the dialogue is, expressed in that way. I like the older style of dialogue, from like the 50s and the 60s, where, people tend to speak in paragraphs instead of,
yeah.
hieroglyphics like it is nowadays. Um,
It's almost like that
those,
transatlantic accent.
yeah, the last film I saw by Robert Eggers was, I haven't seen The Lighthouse yet. I've heard it's great, but it was The Northman. And
Yeah,
have you seen The Northman?
it's been a long time.
Oh, okay. Well, that film, I was that film was one of those special films where you could feel the weight of reality as
Yeah,
you were watching it, and it was it was awesome. I'm looking forward to it tonight. It's good to hear that it's living up to the hype, though.
I think it did.
Hmm.
Like I said, it just depends what you go into the theater trying to take from it.
Right.
I think
Right.
I think movies like this, especially with the hype, there's a lot of preconceived notions. You walk in there and they don't meet your expectations, and then you hate it.
Hmm. And
But
it ruins the film, but
it does. And I try to watch. I watch a film twice every time. I watch it first time, just trying to. I don't want to think. I don't want to put it in my experience, perspectives, anything. I'm just trying to just digest it, and then I go back through. I'm like, well, that camera angle was great. Oh, that lighting was pretty terrible. That acting could have been so much better. Or it was,
yeah.
because I try not to do that, especially when I'm in the theater. I'm just like, I'm gonna
Oh, I
ruin my.
try so hard to turn my brain off because it seems like
Yeah.
it's getting harder as I get older to turn my brain off because
Oh,
it's when you're younger, it's you yeah, when you're younger, you just take things a lot more for what they are, but as you get older, it's harder. You have to actively fight cynicism
yep.
in that way, and you have to. It's getting harder to turn my brain off. So like when those types of movies completely subvert my expectations, they hit a lot harder in some ways than the way movies generally hit when I was a kid. I don't know if you
Yeah.
can relate to that.
Yeah. 100%. Especially with like the shutting off the brain. I mean, we're constantly getting hit with information all day,
Hmm.
every day. We're looking at screens all day, every day.
It's awful.
We're both going to leave this screen and go look at your phone or pull up
Yeah.
another tab. You're going to get to editing, right? I
Yep.
have some film pictures I want to get edited. I'm going to look at another screen, then another screen. I think it's just society is kind of at that point where we need to stop looking at screens all the time.
Oh yeah, I completely agree with you on that one. Well, Tom, I appreciate you coming on. It was great getting to know you. Are there any last thoughts you want to leave with the audience?
Just watch more cinema. Go to more movie theaters, especially the indie ones. I know you guys. Do you have one in Dayton? I'm sure you guys have
Yeah,
one.
we got there's I think we have two or three. One that specifically stands out in my mind. It's a small theater, but it has its charm. It's called the Neon.
Nice.
Um, and it's like right next to a record store. But the Neon,
That's awesome.
it's an older theater too. I think it only seats like maybe 50 or 60 people, and I think they have one or two rooms. It's really niche, but I've been to a number of short film premieres from people that I've known in the past, and it's quaint. It's nice. I definitely need to visit more indie premieres and productions in that regard.
It's hard with the schedule, man.
Yeah, it
Everybody's
is.
so busy. But I would say just watch more cinema. Do what you love in life. Don't let nobody tell you shit. Just
Unless you have an ego, and the director's trying to correct it,
yeah.
obviously. No,
I don't. The battle of the egos is never a fun time. It's
no,
never a
it's
fun. And
not.
I don't have one. I don't think I have one.
I have like one of those. I have an ego about not having an ego. You know, it's like one of
Yeah.
those things. It's like I don't have an ego. Well, now you just created an ego.
Yeah, that's true. And if you get like very deep and philosophical about it, not having an ego is having an ego.
Yeah,
That's a whole nother conversation.
it is. Yeah.
But
Well,
thanks for
Tom.
having me. I had a
Yeah,
great
I
time.
appreciate you coming on, especially the fact that you felt sick, but you chugged some tea. You know, did some black magic rituals, and you were good to go.
Yep. I wasn't gonna miss this.
All right. Have a good one, Tom.
Hey, you too, sir. Thanks.
You too.